The government of Brazil highlights that the national economy, the largest in Latin America, grew by 1.9% in the first quarter of 2023 compared to the last 3 months of 2022. The United States House of Representatives passed a bill to suspend the nation's debt limit through January 1, 2025, as lawmakers race to prevent a catastrophic default. And the foreign ministers of BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, gathered in Cape Town for a 2-day meeting to discuss trade and the conflict in Ukraine. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. On Thursday, the government of Brazil highlights that its local economy, the largest in Latin America, grew by 1.9% in the first quarter of 2023 compared to the last 3 months of 2022. According to the report released by the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics, Brazil's gross domestic product also registered an increase of 3.3% in the first quarter of the year. Out of the 6 major sectors analyzed by the statistical report, the agricultural sector had a growth of 21.6% in the quarter compared to the October-December 2022 period and 18.8% compared to the first 3 months of last year. The advance of the agricultural sector is the highest for a quarter since the last 3 months of 1996. In Brazil, one assembly plant of the U.S. multinational automaker General Motors will shut down production for 10 days. The local metallurgical union said the halt is scheduled for June the 12th to the 23rd at the São José do Campos factory, 96 kilometers from São Paulo. The company announced the decision on Thursday at a workers' gathering. The union warns workers to be attentive to the company maneuver against labor rights. The company's decision will affect the assembly of 3,000 units of the S10 pickup truck. The decision comes less than 2 months after a collective vacation granted from March 27th to April 11th, which resulted in a strike due to the layoffs that had been taking place on the basis of an output reduction. And we remain in Brazil. Brazil's highest court decided last week by 8 votes to convict former president and the former senator for the state of Alagoas, Collor de Mello, but failed to specify what the sentence would be. The case is linked to fraudulent contracts between a construction company, Derivados do Brasil, and a former subsidiary of the semi-public oil company Petrobras, Beer Distribuidora. The investigation judge of the case, Edson Fachin, proposed that the Collor de Mello be sentenced to 33 years in prison, but as the others opted for lesser sentences, the ruling reached an average sentence. The former president went to court for a 2013 case investigated by the Lava Jato operation judges. They determined that there were bribes for about 20 million reals, about $3.9 million. Collor de Mello ran in last year's elections as Bolsonaro's candidate for governor of the state of Alagoas and came in 3rd place. At the social summit of the Southern Common Market, Mercosur, began in Argentina on Thursday as part of the country's pro-tempore presidency of this mechanism. Taking place online, the summit focused on broad, plural, and inclusive talks about pressing issues on the regional agenda. It also advocated strengthening political, social, economic, and commercial integration in the context of new global challenges. In this sense, the foreign minister, Santiago Cafiero, inaugurated the summit, highlighting its aim at enhancing the political and community agenda and recognizing the importance of unity in social organizations and movements. Mercosur is an economic and political bloc originally comprising Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. Its latest meeting was held in 2016. And during his two-day visit to China, the Argentine Minister of Economy, Sergio Massa, discussed lithium exploitation in the province of Salta, one of the highlights of his agenda in the Asian giant. According to a statement from the Argentinian Economy Ministry, Chinese minor Tibet Summit Resources will invest $1.7 billion to develop 2 lithium projects in Argentina as the South American country increases the offer for the mineral and demand for manufacturing rechargeable batteries. The projects in the Arizaro and Diablillos salt flats in Salta province are expected to produce between 50,000 and 100,000 tons of lithium. Argentina is the world's 4th largest producer of lithium, an ultralight metal in high demand for makers of electric vehicles. The country's growing lithium sector is expected to triple shipments in the next few years. And the presidents of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez, and his Bolivian counterpart, Luiz Catacora, will inaugurate on Thursday an electrical substation in the Bolivian town of Yahuacua, and it will facilitate energy exchange between the two South American nations. According to the Argentina's Secretariat of Communication and Press, the facility will be named Juana Zurduy de Padilla, in honor to an heroine who fought for the freedom of both countries in the Spanish-American independence. It is expected that the electric substation will improve the energy supply to the populations of the border areas, and Bolivia will be able to join the high-voltage transport system and stop being the only bordering country that is not incorporated. For Argentina, importing energy from Bolivia is a step forward, especially for the northwest of this territory at times of high demand. On Wednesday, Chile's Constitutional Commission, appointed by the Chilean Congress, approved the preliminary draft of the new Magna Carta. The document was elaborated by an expert commission of 24 members that, since March 6, have been elaborating the preliminary draft of the new constitutional text. The preliminary draft of the new Chilean Constitution is ready for the Constitutional Council, controlled by the right wing, after the May elections, to begin the debate next Wednesday to write the final draft of the new Magna Carta, which could mean the end of the current one of 1980. After 6 months of revision and work, the draft will be submitted to a popular plebiscite on December 17th. On that date, Chilean citizens will be able to vote for or against the implementation of a new Magna Carta, leaving behind the text promulgated during the Pinochet era. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find the news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Wednesday, the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights condemned the murder of a Garifuna community defender, Martín Morales. The Black Fraternal Organization of Honduras, or FRONEG, indicated that the body of Martín Morales was located on Sunday in the Gama River in Triunfo de la Cruz. Morales is the second Garifuna defender found dead in the sector of the Gama River. The Garifuna community defender was a member of the Monitoring and Compliance Commission of the sentence issued by the Inter-American Court of Human Rights and a collaborator of the Committee for the Defense of Tierra de Triunfo de la Cruz. In this regard, United Nations demanded the Honduran state an investigation into Morales' assassination. The Garifuna people are a community of mixed, free African and indigenous American ancestry that originated in the Caribbean islands of St. Vincent and speak Garifuna, an Arawak language, and Byzantine Creole. Honduran Garifuna community exceeds the 200,000 people. On Wednesday, the Court of Appeals of the state of Tamaulipas in northeastern Mexico has exonerated the former mayor of Iguala, José Luis Abarca Velázquez, from the case of the 43 Ayotzinapa students. The decision has generated national controversy because family members and social activists claim that the federal court's ruling was a blunder, since the students' parents see the former mayor of Iguala as one of those responsible for the disappearance of the 43 students. The family members can still request a direct appeal appeal before the Collegiate Circuit Court to reverse the decision of Judge Juan Manuel Rodriguez. The President of the Republic, when asked, reiterated that the government will continue with the investigations and ratified that the powers remain with the judiciary. The United States House of Representatives passed a bill to suspend the nation's debt limit through January 1, 2025, as lawmakers race to prevent a catastrophic default. The final House vote was 314 to 117, with 149 Republicans and 165 Democrats supporting the measure. In a potentially worrisome sign for the House Republican Speaker Kevin McCarthy, 71 members of his conference opposed the deal that he brokered with President Joe Biden. Meanwhile, the U.S. head of state applauded the House passage of the legislation, calling on the Senate to quickly take up the legislation to avoid a default. Likewise, the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warned that the federal government will be unable to pay its bills starting June 5th, unless it was allowed to borrow more.
Tonight, we all made history, because this is the biggest cut and savings this Congress has ever voted for. And it's not that we're just voting for it. This is going to be law. $2.1 trillion.
Now we move on to other topics. On Wednesday, authorities of Nova Scotia, Canada, have made a plea for external assistance in response to the ongoing and severe wildfires that have caused the displacement of over 16,000 people. The Premier of Nova Scotia, Tim Houston, communicated that his government had been offered support from other Canadian provinces, and they had initiated communication with authorities situated in the northeastern region of the United States with the aim of soliciting additional resources. The Halifax Regional Municipality has reported that the ongoing fires have destroyed or damaged over 200 structures, predominantly houses, and forced the evacuation of approximately 16,500 individuals. However, no casualties or injuries have been reported. As stated by official reports, the blaze has enlarged to approximately 837 hectares. In Romania, some 20,000 primary and secondary school teachers demonstrated in Bucharest to demand better salaries, continuing a strike that began more than a week ago. The industrial action has been forced a halt to the exchange of Prime Minister agreed between the Conservative National Liberal Party, the PNL, and the Social Democratic Party, the PSD, that was due to take place last Friday as part of the coalition agreement signed by the two formations last December. Australian Federal Court Judge Anthony Bisanca ruled on Thursday that articles published in 2018 about a series of war crimes committed by Robert Smith, a former member of the Special Air Services Regiment and now a media company executive, were substantially true. Judge Bisanca concluded that former military Robert Smith, the son of a judge, breached the moral and legal standards of military engagement and disgraced Australia with his conduct. On the other hand, the allegations of domestic violence cases were found to be unproven and defamatory, although the judge ruled that this will not have further damaged the veteran's reputation. Mr. Robert Smith's lawyer asked for 42 days to consider lodging an appeal to the full bench of the federal court. He is one of the several Australian military personnel being investigated by police for alleged war crimes in Afghanistan. And TeleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries using StoreSat. Dial 461 and enjoy our Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Wednesday, various tribes from the state of Manipur, India, staged a demonstration seeking the government's intervention to mitigate escalated violence and resolve the ongoing tensions. The demonstration coincides with the visit of Amit Shah, India's federal home minister, to Manipur with the aim of restoring stability in the northeastern region. According to recent reports, there have been at least 80 fatalities in the current ethnic altercations, and violence in the state has resulted in the injury of some 300 people and the destruction of nearly 1,700 homes. According to official data in India, the scheduled tribes are designated as socio-economically underprivileged groups. Nevertheless, the establishment of quotas in both education and employment sectors has been undertaken with the objective of enhancing the lives of the targeted individuals. China on Thursday demanded that the United States backtrack on plans to sign a trade pact with Taiwan and cut off any official contact, reminding it that is the most sensitive issue in bilateral ties. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said such an action would constitute a serious violation of both the country's sovereignty over the island and the fundamentals of Beijing-Washington ties. The foreign spokesperson said the U.S. side is sending the wrong signals to promoters of Taiwan separatism and independence when its commitment is only to maintain unofficial ties with the territory. The official also said that the only threat to the world is the confrontation or the new Cold War promoted by some nations, meddling in the internal affairs of others and politicizing trade, technology, and production. United States Secretary of State Anthony Blinken warned on Thursday that his nation could take action against Sudanese leaders from the army and rapid support forces after the collapse of another truce.
Actions, again, by both sides, in clear violation of the commitments they made in terms of the ceasefire. So that also is not the right direction to be heading, and it's certainly not what's in the interests of the people of Sudan. We'll continue to be engaged at the same time. We're also looking at steps that we can take to make clear our views on any leaders who are moving Sudan in the wrong direction, including by perpetuating the violence and by violating the ceasefires that they've actually committed.
The foreign ministers of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the BRICS, gathered in Cape Town for a two-day meeting to discuss various issues, including local currency trading and a peace plan for the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. The meeting, hosted by South Africa, will pave the way for the 15th BRICS summit scheduled to take place in August, which will bring together leaders from the member countries, including Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the Russian President Vladimir Putin, and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. In the framework of the foreign ministers' meeting, gatherings between Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his South African counterpart Nalendi Pandor, and the meeting with his Indian counterpart Subramanian Jaishankar stood out. The Kenyan President William Ruto called on all African leaders to embrace Pan-African payments to reduce reliance on the United States dollar. Speaking at a forum of the African Continental Free Trade Area, the Kenyan head of state urged his peers in the continent to mobilize central and commercial banks to join Pan-African payments and settlement system, which was formed in January 2022. Likewise, President Ruto expressed concerns over the challenges faced by the African countries and the local banks, who often relying on correspondent banks in the U.S. and Europe to complete payments between African currencies, resulting in delays and additional charges. Importers, such as oil marketers and manufacturers, have since last year complained of a gaping mismatch in demand of supply of the U.S. dollars, prompting them to buy it in batches and levels way above the official rate. On Wednesday, the president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, expressed his country's commitment to fostering a sustainable blue economy that will advance the well-being of all Ghanaian citizens. During a two-day National Blue Economy Summit, the president, Akufo-Addo, emphasized the significance of the ocean as a potential catalyst for facilitating the development of West African countries and enhancing the well-being of its people. He also said Ghana have already initiated the National Integrated Maritime Strategy to allow the country to chart viable courses to address maritime threats, conservation and management of marine resources to generate substantial national income. Both the Ghanaian government's Sustainable Development Goals Advisory Unit and the United Nations Development Programme convened the event. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.